Hi folks, this is Steve the Cardboard Cultist bringing you a time-lapse session and overview of Terraforming Mars from Stronghold Games. Terraforming Mars is a 1 to 5 player game designed by Jacob Frixilus that sees players taking on the role of competing corporations as they try to terraform Mars over the course of multiple generations. And your corporation will be achieving this goal through the completion of a wide variety of projects, from introducing plant life and animal life, to building cities, right through to more ambitious projects like crashing asteroids into the surface of the planet. Players will be competing to achieve the highest terraform rating, and each generation they will complete various projects. Projects can be completed through card play and activation, or there are also standard projects that are always available to players with the required resources. And it's these projects, both through card play and standard activation, that are the heart of the game. Players will be constantly trying to activate projects and trigger effects to stay one step ahead of their opponents. Mechanically, players will take up to 2 actions each turn until they decide to pass, effectively dropping out of the current generation or game round. Other players will continue until they're satisfied with their progress for that generation, at which point players will receive new resources and finance to progress to the next generation. In this production phase between generations, your corporation will receive money based both on their financial income on their player boards and also their current terraform rating. And your terraform rating is represented by the track running around the outside of the board, and this is essentially your victory points. The player with the highest terraform rating at the end of the game is going to win. So how does the game end? Well, there are 3 conditions players will need to satisfy in order to trigger the end game. Firstly, they'll need to max out the oxygen track, and that's the track at the top of the board arcing around Mars. Secondly, they'll need to deplete the ocean tile stack located in the top right hand corner of the board. And finally, they'll need to raise temperature, filling the thermometer running up the right hand edge of the board. Once all 3 conditions are fulfilled, the end game is triggered and a final production and scoring round will begin. The end game will see players gain additional points through a variety of means. Firstly, all the greenery tiles will be awarded points, and cities next to greenery tiles will receive additional points. Players will also potentially have collected points through the projects they have completed on their cards, and they will also receive points from completed milestones and awards, and these are located at the bottom of the game board. Firstly, let's take a look at those milestones located in the bottom left hand corner of the board. The milestones are conditions that players may activate when they satisfy the required criteria. So for example, the Gardener milestone may be claimed when a player has placed 3 greenery tiles on the board, but this milestone claim is not only an action, but it also costs money. It's also important to note that the milestones can only be activated 3 times during the game. So it's quite possible for players not to be able to activate a milestone even if they have achieved the requirements, which adds a really nice competitive element to the game as players race to achieve the milestones first. Now let's look at the awards located in the bottom right hand corner of the game board. Awards have the same competitive nature, but when they are activated, they represent game goals for all players. So for example, the Landlord Award grants points to the player with the most tiles on the board. However, like the Milestone Awards, their activations are limited. But unlike the milestones, when activated by a player, any player is capable of claiming the victory and bonus points. And this creates some really interesting tactical gameplay opportunities, as it's quite possible for one player to activate a particular award, but by the end game fail to be the player that claims the points for said award. So by this point, I'm sure you can already see there's a lot going on in Terraforming Mars, but at the core it's a fairly simple but incredibly elegant engine building game. Players will be purchasing cards and completing standard projects to try to build an effective engine to increase their terraforming rating. There are so many interesting card interactions throughout this game and so many routes to victory. Players can aggressively raise oxygen and heat to look to gain early leads, or they can focus purely on building their cities and tiles influence over the map. There is also cards that have triggered abilities that you can use to gain points throughout the game, looking to play for a longer game. And it's this back and forth that really makes Terraforming Mars shine. Due to the asymmetrical nature of the corporations, players will also need to tailor their game plan to the specific skill set, and they'll also need to think about card draw and what they're going to do with those cards. While the standard projects do afford players some level of flexibility, it's still really important to try and play with a fluid approach. If the cards dictate a specific path, it's important to be able to adjust strategies and focus on producing the best engine possible. The game balances strategy and tactics really well, as you'll need to react to your opponent's decisions too. You can't just focus on yourself. Now, while there aren't many cards that actively attack your opponents, you have to always be aware of their strategies and aims, and try not to let them run away with things. You're going to have a lot of fun with Terraforming Mars, just exploring card synergy and trying out various strategies. While each game mechanically will play in the same fashion, things always feel fresh, as you're presented with different routes to victory each time you play. In the game you're watching here, I'm playing green, and on the player board on the left hand side of your screen. My corporation had benefits in titanium. Starting the game with a large cache of titanium, my corporation was tailor-made to focus on space-centric cards. However, in the early game, card draw wasn't on my side, and I needed to play a more passive game, focusing on building up activated abilities on various projects, while waiting for those big space projects later in the game. Even though throughout the game my terraforming rating was unable to compete with the player on the right of your screen, playing black, I still knew I had a chance to pull off a late win due to endgame scoring, having amassed a large amount of points on various completed projects. And I really like that even when things aren't going your way, you can consolidate your position and hang in there and see if things turn around. So I think at this point we should probably talk a little bit about production quality. I think this is probably the only small blemish on an otherwise impressive game. I was a little bit disappointed with the artwork the game offers. It feels rather bland at times, and the artistic style feels mismatched. Additionally, the production quality of some of the components could have been better. The player boards are of a really average quality and should have been printed on higher quality stock. The wooden components you are seeing here are courtesy of a beautiful insert from Broken Token that, while expensive, really adds to the overall experience of the game. While game board upgrades are not essential, they are recommended and will really make life on Mars so much easier. That said, this is still an amazing game and one you really should check out. But as we wrap up endgame scoring, you'll see that I wasn't able to catch up the black player, finishing just a few points behind. But sometimes that happens. But until next time, take care and thanks for watching.